Hi everybody, how are you doing?
Good, good. Just came back from vacation.
Oh yeah, I noticed. How was your anniversary vacation? Good?
Yeah, we went to La Paz, Baja California.
Oh yeah,
It was awesome.
sounds nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're back safe. So did you enjoy the weather out there or?
It was 90, 89, and we rented our Airbnb, so we had up in a cliff. It was beautiful.
Oh
And
wow,
then we
sounds dreamy.
we went to we did went to one of the nicest beach in the area, Balandra. Um, went to the island, Espiritu Santo on a boat and just ate a ton of raw fish,
Seafood?
seafood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that sounds fantastic.
yeah, it was great.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. You gotta, well, the one of the things with COVID is that trips are fairly affordable, right? If you take the risk to go.
Yeah,
Oh, good. Now you can come back and I know basketball's in season, so you
yeah. It
can.
was it was a pain in the butt to see the games, but we managed. Okay, the Airbnb had crappy ass Wi-Fi. Well, I don't know if it's
Mhm.
Mexico in overall they just have crappy ass Wi-Fi, but yeah, I got to manage to see at least the last game or no game four. I saw the last second quarter, the second half, and then but yeah.
Oh, that's good. Well, I mean, you can't, yeah, connection. I had a hard time when I went to Baja California a while back too, but I want to go back again. I like Cabo, San Lucas, or even.
Well, you know what? 2 years ago, I went to Cabo, and
Mhm.
what I noticed between it's only a 2 hour drive to La Paz.
Right.
Uh, La Paz is more. It's literally it translates to the peace.
Yeah, quiet, more
It's
quiet.
it's quieter. I mean,
Hmm.
if I go back to Cabo, I went to a all inclusive, so it's the beaches there suck. They're all rocky and
Yeah.
the only beach worth going is the one right in front of the hotel because the hotel
Hmm.
maintains it. But
Right.
but yeah, I'd rather go back to. Actually, I was telling my wife that we should probably sell one of our Airbnbs here and buy one over there.
I heard it's very affordable if you can, like
Yeah,
but also you gotta know the sources that you trust too, because I hear there's a lot of scam going on with properties in Mexico or Baja California, because
yeah.
people be taking your money and not do anything.
No, yeah,
So,
no. I would hire a lawyer or something to what's it called to do a transaction if we end up going that. But I mean, what I did notice is yeah, it's not it's pretty cheap, but not that cheap either.
right. Well, compared to California, it's cheaper
Yeah, that's true.
for beach properties. So, it's a good retirement investment if you think down the line. So that will be somewhere that you might want to end up
I,
when you're retiring.
Actually, my retirement was Rosarito.
Oh
It
yeah,
was,
a lot of people buy properties there.
but now that I've been to La Paz, I think we're gonna switch. Yeah,
Yeah. Rosarito is nice too. I used to go to Rosarito when I used to live in San Diego because it's so close,
yeah,
Like we just take the bus and the bus would take us there and then,
yeah.
a lot of
And
good food.
what the good thing about Rosarito is only an hour, half an hour to an hour ride back to the border, so it's
Yeah,
not that bad. And then the
right.
bus is only like an hour plane ride, so it's not too bad either. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked living in San Diego because you can just pop into Baja California, and the weather is greater. Yeah, it's better down. It's just and people, I don't know, just people up here with traffic, they're so intense compared to, but yeah, down the line maybe. So that's the dream, right? To live beachfront someday.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about what we need to do today as far as assignment and covering the notes. I'm only going to cover chapter 7 today. Originally, I was kind of not sure if I wanted to do 8, but I think I want to do chapter 8 and 9 together as we preview if else statement already in the last unit. Um, so I want to touch on just string methods today, and then looking at the library for Python using these methods. And next week we'll do 8 and 9 when we cover if else, nested if, and then going into loops because those things usually go together. So we will download the notes. You can find that in module unit 4 and also the in-class assignment. I will post the lab soon. I have some finalized things I gotta touch on and fix. Also, I want to remind you that there will be a quiz next week. I decided not to do the quiz this week because we had a short week last week. And then so this time, since we're only covering one chapter, we're able to do the homework. So the homework is quiz review. You can use it as a study guide, but you're required to turn it in. Basically, it's very much like the assignments that we've done, the lab and the in class. So you can look over your notes, your textbook if you like, and some of your assignment and lab questions. The quiz is going to be multiple choice. You get 3 attempts, and that's next week. And the highest score out of the 3 attempts will be recorded. A lot of the times you will see that it has like, identifying the error, what's the output, looking at the actual script and determine what that program is doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the notes and then we'll do the assignments together. And then when you complete, all you have to do is turn in the document that contained the screen captures. Most of the things we're going to be doing today will be writing the script in Python. So let me see, hold on one second. Okay, so the start of Unit 4 notes, it talks about how string is a set of sequential characters, meaning that we can think of it like a list of characters. We can use the index to access the characters inside a string. And with Python is that we will also need to look at white space or space inside that string as a location in that sequential group. So now when you're using, in the past, in the last few weeks, we have talked about concatenation using the plus sign, and very similar to C++ or Java. So you can concatenate 2 strings together, and what that will do is it's going to combine those 2 strings into 1 string as an output, and you would use a plus sign for that. Now that will take away the space between one string and another string when you concatenate. So to add the space, what you can do is you can make it a space inside the quotations, so that way it would literally add another string in between as a space. So we can do it that way. Otherwise, you're going to have 2 strings combined and they're together with no space. So that looks a little awkward, as you can see with hello world here. It's just no space, so it doesn't look as clean. So if we want to separate the 2 strings when we concatenate, we would use a double quotation mark or a single quotation mark with the actual space or the white space. Okay, so that's one way that we can combine the 2 strings. Now, in Python, we know that a string is a list of characters, and in C++ or Java, you would see that it's an array of characters, and they are sequential. So starting with the first character, it will be placed at index 0. and the second character for the string Python, y is at index 1 and t is at index 2 and so forth. So we would always start the index at 0 for the first character. So here I created a table so you can see. So when you're looking at the string Python, the capital P is at index 0 here and y is at index 1. But we can also use the negative index value going from the last character in that string, going backwards to the first character. So the last character, that will be index -1, which, and then the next to last is -2 and so forth. So it's one less as you proceed to the left. So if we're going from left to right, from the first character to the last character of the string, we use positive index value starting at 0. If we're going from the last index to the first index, from right to left, we would use the negative index value starting at -1 at the last character. So there's two ways that you can do this, and this is important when we start looking at characters or we're trying to search for certain character inside that string, or we can manipulate and output a specific character or group of characters inside that string. So as illustrated, you can see that there. So the example that you see here is, let's say that we want to display only the fourth letter inside that string. What we can do is, if you're not using shell, if you're writing it in text editor, you can have it the print method, and then you simply pass the variable that you declare with the string that you assign the string value to, and then the index number. Since it's a fourth letter, we would use index 3, and we would enclose that with the square brace. So let me open up my idle so you can see. And now in shell by itself, it will be able to run the line if you declare what str3 is, right? If we do that, we're gonna make sure I'm on the right unit 4 here. Hold on. So I didn't do. So when let's say that if we want to, if we say that str3 is, right, a string, we can use double or single quotation mark. We can say Python, and then if you simply want to print that, Chris, I think you're not on mute. All right. So if we want to print a certain character from that string, what we can do is we will pass it, and we would use the square brace, and then we simply put in the index, oops, and let's say 3, and that would give us the, let me see, 0, 1, 2, 3. Actually, this is not an index value, it's a position. So if you have 0, 1, 2, 3, why do we have it at the 3? Is that it stops at 3, so as it won't go into the next one, which is so right here is at the position 3. So yeah, the fourth index is going to be 3. So this is H. Okay. So we would have the H showing when you have the third index here. Now, if we want to print str3 at 0 if you have the 0 index, that will be the first character. So what you can do is you can use the index value to show the character inside that string. And this is what we see from our example. But what if I use the -1? So if I use the -1, that will give me the n, which is the last character in the string Python. Okay, so what we can do is we can also use the negative index value, and all you have to do is in the parameter, you gotta mention the variable that you used to declare that string, and string is a group of characters. So that's what you would see. Now in your assignment, for the first one, right, it asks you to create a variable that holds your first name, and then you would need to add the statements to display the first and the last letter of your name, of your first name, using index. Then what you're going to do is you're going to determine the number of characters. So how do we do that in Python? So we talked about how we would use the negative value to show the last character, or we can use a positive index like 5 for Python here, right? You can also use a method called length that would tell you the number of elements in a list, or in our case, the number of characters in a string. So what we can do is we can do print length str3. So you would simply pass a variable inside the length method, and then you would use the length method inside the print method. That way we would know how many characters is in that string that's assigned to the variable. So here, let me see, I think I have a program to test it. All right, so here is a program that I use to test for the assignment. So I simply have the declaration for my variable, my name, or you can say first name, and then you would assign it a string with your name, your first name. Then to display the first and the last letter, I use my name with the index 0 for the first letter, and last letter in the first name, I use -1. We saw that. Okay, so that allows me to display the first and the last letter in my first name that was declared under my name. Then to display the number of characters, I simply do a print, and I use length method, and inside it I would use my name. I need to pass the variable here, and as I declare it as my name, I would put it inside the parentheses of the length method, and the length method goes inside the print. So when I run this, it would show that the first letter of my name is capital K, and you know that it's different because ASCII value for lowercase and uppercase is different. The second letter of my first, sorry, that one is a typo, so let me redo that. The last letter. So the last letter of my first name is Y. As you see that it's declared as an assigned Casey here. And then the number of characters in my first name is 5, right? If you count up the characters, I have 5. Okay? So that will take care of the first 2 tasks that we have to do. Now on the next one, it wants you to print a range of characters. So how do we do that? So to print the range, you can use the index, and you would use a colon to specify the start and the end. So here I want to start at the first index, which is 0, the first character, and I want to go to the 4th. Yeah, sorry, this is a typo. It was late. So actually I was right. I want to show you why. Okay. So in our case here, if we're going to go from the first to the third letter, what I did was I declared a variable, and that variable just represent the substring or the group of characters that I would pull from the original string. So subname, I have it declared it as my name with a range of characters from 0 to 3. And then I would go ahead and print this, and I should simply pass the subname variable. Okay. Now a way that you can also do this is not having to type the 0. You can just simply do a :3. That would still give you the range because it defaults to the first index, which is 0 if you leave it blank. So I can type in a value here, the index value, or if I leave it blank, it's just going to default to the first character or the first index. So as you see that when I ran this, it shows me that the first to the third letter is KAS, as my name is Casey. Okay. And when we use the one without 0 here inside the square brace, it's still going to show me the same thing. Okay, it's the same as. So what that will do is you start at the index 0 and you want it to stop at index 3 so it doesn't go into the 4th character. Okay, so it's gonna place, it's a marker where it's gonna stop at the 4th, right before the 4th character. So that's gonna be your marker for the stop. Okay, so that's really, I call it more of like a position. So you would start at the index 0 and you go to the 3rd, and it's gonna put the marker right at the 4th index. So it won't go into the 4th index. Okay, any question? I know it sounds confusing, but if you start writing it, you're gonna see it, right? It's gonna place it at that 3rd character right before the 4th. So now what we can do is we can either use starting from index 0 to 3, or we can just use :3, which really means it's going to go from the first index to and stop right before the 4th index. Okay, so there are 2 ways to do that. So that should take care of C in question 1. Now, if we want to go from the 2nd character to the 2nd letter to the last letter, or the 2nd character to the last character in our name, what we can do is, again, we would declare another variable to hold that range, okay? The reason why we want to do this is as you bury it inside the print method, what happens is it's not going to like it. It's going to lose, you know, just like how you would need to use it. You need to point to it, the actual location where it holds these characters. So as you bury it inside the print with the range, what happens is it's going to lose the value and it won't be able to display that. So either you get a 0 or you're not going to get things that are meaningful. So what you want to do is you want to create another location that's going to hold that range, and inside that range belongs to another variable. So what I have here is I have sub2 is the range of my name, which is going to start at the second letter to the last letter of that string. And then I will print that. I simply print sub2, print that range of characters. So as you can see, it's going to go from A to S to E to Y, which is A is the second letter that starts at index 1. And then if you leave it blank, it automatically goes to the end of that string or the end of that list. Okay? So what we have is we have the rest of the characters starting at the second character. And we simply use the print to show that. Now, another way that we can do this is we can use length method inside the range. So I have declared another variable called sub3 to really contain the characters in that range. So I would have my name, which is, it stores the original string, and I would specify it inside the square brace. I would put 1, which is the second letter, and it's going to go until the end. It's going to go until the length of the string. So I use the length method inside here. So it's going to go from second character to the end of that length of my string. So this is another way that you can do this, and you should still be able to get the same result, as you can see that I print here. And you can pick one that you like. So the second choice in this is a little bit more tedious, right, compared to, you know, displaying the range using the colon and the index only. So what we have is, if you're using the length, you have to pass a method inside that range, which is inside another variable. And this is the reason why that we want to create a location to store it, right? Any question? So you can choose any approach. Okay, that's up to you. Now, if you run into error, just look for parentheses, write the symbol that you use, how you declare your variable, make sure that your variable name is matching up. You know, that tends to be just syntax issue. So check your syntax. Okay, so now we need to do D and E, where we would use the index and we use the length, and you can see that there. Okay. Yeah, I wish I can have bigger font. Let me see if there's a format option on this. No. So I know that screen share sometimes it's very small to see. Okay, no question?
Dr.
Yes, Cynthia.
Question. I'm just having some trouble understanding the conceptual part of it. Let's see. So for the first index, that represents character P or
Yeah, so the first character, that's gonna be index 0.
oh, okay.
So when you put it in the square brace, you want to use the index number.
Okay.
But yeah, we can also use the negative. So if you're using 0 forward, you would, if you're using positive index number, you would go from 0 forward, 0 as the first character. But if you're using negative value, you're going to go backwards. You're going to go from the last character as -1, and then you just count it up.
Oh, I see. So
Okay.
are those indexes representing numbers or they also represent letters too?
It could be represent anything in a list,
Oh,
but since we're using a string, it represents characters.
okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So any other questions? All right. Let's talk about the next part. So here it gives you the example on how to use that. And when you're doing a range of characters inside you're getting a substring inside the original string, that's called string slicing. So what we can do is we can slice it down to different characters. And why is this important, right? When we start building applications or even script, what we got to think about how the user actually input the data. We can use, the string methods to really take pieces of the string. Let's say that let's say they type in a long sentence and I want only keywords from that sentence to be pulled, right? To be added to, let's say, highlights for our company. Let's say that they did great reviews on our product and we want to be able to pull some of the keywords to really put it on our website or put it on our advertisement. So what we can do is we can slice the string, right, from the original input, and we can take that and we can display pieces of it. So you can do that automatically using like the methods that's shown here, okay? Or if you want to highlight or summarize certain part of their comment. So there are many use in this, and what we can do is we can slice the string using the range functionality in the square brace, right? Because characters are the sequential characters represent that string. So now with this, what you can see is you can also you can leave, right, the last part here blank. That's just going to go to the end of that string, or we can use the length. Okay. So you can refer to the example on page 2, right, to complete the page 1 and page 2 to complete the exercise 1. It shows you that. Okay. So now, what if we want to skip some of the characters, right? We can have it where we would have a third parameter inside the square brace where we would skip a certain character, okay? Let's say that you design a game like Hangman and you're only going to show some of the character, right? And you're going to skip some so the user has to guess what those characters are. So here's an example for how to skip every other character. So what you have to do is you have to tell it where it's going to start as a string, which character is going to start. where it's gonna end. So we have to establish the range first, and then we're gonna specify the value of what it needs to show. I'm missing a closing parentheses there, I'm sorry. But so yeah, so what we have is we declare a string example str, we declare the variable example str to contain the string scripting. And when we print, we would start with the first character, which is 0 index. That will be a capital S. And we want to go to the last character, which is G. Now, you have to count up the number of characters to really determine that 7. Since we start at 0, if you count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, right? So what you have is you want to stop at a certain position. So if you want to go from here, from 0 to 7, it actually put the marker at the 8th character inside that string. Now, if you want to go to the end, what will happen is you can change the 7 to the 8, right? So we have 2, 4, 6. So now the 2 here indicates that it's going to skip. It's going to show every other. So it's going to skip 1 as it goes. Okay, so it's going to show the S, it's going to show the R, it's going to show the P and the I. Okay, and it stops at N. Okay, now if we change this to A, it's going to go all the way to G, so it should show G. Okay, so you can have a very long string in that we can slice it and then we can show, you know, various characters by using the skip functionality. Okay, so another way that we will do this, and we would be able to use, and I'll talk about that here. So if you're using the positive stride, which is going from 0 to the higher up number, what you have is you have from the first index to whatever number of index that you're using. However, you can also go negative stride. Notice that when you go in the positive stride, the start value is lower, right? Like we would start with the left, the most left index or whatever index to the left. So that's lower. Now, when we're going the negative stride is that it's going to go backwards. What you have is you would start with the index that's higher because you're going from the last or the right index going to the left. So if you're going from left to right, you're going to use the lower number going to the right, which is higher. If you're going from the right to left, you would start with the higher value here, going to the lower number, but you have to indicate the negative value as the third parameter inside the square brace. So what I'm doing here is that I want to start, right, at a certain position from the right going to left. So if you're looking 2, 4, 6, 7, there are 7 characters inside that string. But what I want is I actually want to start at the 6th character, which is index 5. I want to start at F instead of G. I want to start here. And I want to go left. And I'm going to skip every other character. So that's why it's showing F, D, and B. Okay. Now, if we want to start at G from the right here, what we need to do is change that to 6 because, you know, just count up the number of characters and use the index for that. And to skip, I use the -2 because we're going from right to left. Okay. Now, you know, this can be used for many different type of functionality, used to search for, like, let's say you write a program to really brute force a password, right? You can have it search based on the captured string. and then to be able to analyze that piece by piece, character by character. Okay, so that way, you know, it would, so there are many things that we can do with this. You can make a game, right, where it takes a word, switch it backwards, and then have the user guess certain character in that word. So string formatting and manipulation is important, especially when we deal with input and output, right? So in this one, we started at F, that's why we have the 5 here. And then we ended up with 0. So we're gonna go from F to A, going backwards from right to left. So we have the 0 here, and we want to skip every other character, so that's why we have a -2. Now you can change it to -3, then it's going to skip more. So that third element, that third piece here allows you to really show and skip. Okay, so the output is FDB. Any question? No question. Okay, so after number 1, make sure we do a screen capture for our program, and you can do it all in one program like what I did. And then we're going to talk about split, where we actually take your name and split it into substrings, but we'll get to that. First, I want to touch on something real quick. Okay, so we talk a little bit about skipping. Let me see if I have one for skip to show you, because I test every single one of them. Yeah, so this is the one that we saw in the example. So in this one, I actually, in the program itself, I skip 2 characters. So let me run this so you can see. Okay. So I have it where it starts at 0 and it's going to go to the 8th character, which is index 7, and then it's going to skip every 2. So it gives me SII. So it skips the C and the R, right? It shows the I, it skips the P and the T. So if you change that value, it's gonna skip based on the value that you specify. Okay. And then on the second one I have it where it would skip every other character using 2. So if you're going backwards, you simply use a higher number, which is for the later characters, right? It doesn't have to be the last. And then you would use the lower number for the end. So the start is higher, the end is lower, and then you would use a negative for the third if you're going backwards. Okay. Now let's play with this for a second. Let me do 8. Let me save this and then let me rerun it. Okay. Questions? No questions.
Would it break it if you make it too big? If it's bigger than the word, the array size?
If you make it larger, it's just gonna, so here, let's say that if I make this 10, right? Because you know that there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So I'm larger than my actual string, right? I'm gonna show you real quick. So if I save this and run it, right? Let's do 11. It's still gonna show you what it actually could find. So, because remember that strings is technically null terminated in the back, and if there's nothing else, Python won't show you anything. So when I did the 10 and then the 11, it still does the same. So let me repeat this, okay? So you can see. So if I modify this to be 10, right? If I run this, you see it's exactly the same. So yeah, because if there's nothing else for it to seek to display, it's just gonna show the same thing because that's all your string is. It's not gonna throw an error. I mean, other languages might be, but in this case for Python, no, it just shows that.
Also, you could change your font size in the options.
Oh, really? Thanks.
Yeah, it's in configure idle.
I know. Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
thought. I thought I saw this before, but thank you. Is that too large? 16. Let me do 14. There we go. That's a little better. I can be able to go larger because it's such a short program. Thank you. I forgot about that. All right. Let's talk
I had
about
a quick question.
Yes, and Andre.
Sorry.
That's okay.
You said it was the same program for number 1 and number 2?
For number 2, I have a different one for number 1. This is my number 1. So the
Okay.
number 1 is that, yeah, you just simply show certain index, certain character for your name.
Okay, and then for number 2, we just use the split option?
For number 2,
The split.
yeah, I will talk about the split. Yeah, you can use, yeah, for number 2, you have to do the split. I haven't gotten to the split yet.
Oh, okay.
The skip. So I just want to show the skip for now. So, but let's get to the split. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So we touched on skipping with slicing, and then here is a way that you can also, this one is tricky. So you can use the operator like multiplication to repeat something multiple times, right? So what I can do is I can have it showing A, B, C, D, E 5 times. But what if I want to only show certain character multiple times? Okay. So this is a way that we can do it. So similarly, you still have to do the range. So what these 2 colons will do is it's going to say from start to end, which is the length of that string, because we have it done 5 times. So it just repeats it 5 times for us, times 5, right? But we are only going to show every 5th character repeating in that string. So, but from the first. So we know that A is the first, right? And then it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, 5 back at A again because we have it repeating 5 times. So let me open one. I did one for this. So I can show you how that is. Here's the repeat. Okay, so I have EXTR as ABCDE, and I want it to go 5 times, so multiply it by 5. You can do 10, however many times that you want. And if I print this, it's going to show here's my output. It's going to show ABCDE 5 times. So that's the first print here. Okay. Sorry. Too excited to click there. Okay. Now for the second one, the second print, I have it printing every 5th character after it repeats. So from start to end, right, and every 5th, so you would have A 5 times. Okay. Now, if I wanted to display from last to first, going the other way, skipping every other, then I go from 5 to 0, right? Skipping -2, so it's going to give me FDB for this, for only A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, not the repeating. So you can see a little bit of a different way that we can utilize the range of the character in string, and by specifying different values, you can have it start, stop, skip, right? You can also have it, multiply by many times, so it's repeating. And then again, here we also do start, stop, skip. So when you don't put a value, just use the colon, it just default to the first, the last, and whatever that's going to skip as the third part. Okay.
Is there any way to add a space in between each repeat?
No. Well, you can, but you have to add the blank space as string when you print. So I have to, yeah, it won't let you squeeze anything in here because it treats the space as a character, So what they did with the library is they shrunk that. They didn't add that extra space because it would count it as a placement for a character in that string. What you can do is you can specify, oh yeah, maybe you can specify the string itself with the space. So it treats it as an index. You can do that. Yeah, but that gets tedious because you have to include it and skip it,
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a good question though, because I didn't even think on that level. Because I was like, oh yeah, you can actually do that if you include that in the declaration. Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Okay, so here it shows you how you can repeat and also skip. We will get to object and class later on, but this is kind of like when you're using the method, you're actually using the string as a class. When you're reading the documentation, it tells you that string is a class. Therefore, it makes it an object. So technically, it is an object in that class. So when, if you took Java right off the bat, we learned how to create a class. And when you create a class, you actually create that object. So when you run Java, when you build that first, class, it creates the object file. So string itself is a class and an object. So what that means for us is that we can implement methods to be able to manipulate the object, like what we've seen in using, as you would see, we would use split. Now, object would contain properties, and we can use the method to really access the property of the object. So we can look at like pieces of it, or we can look at, different areas of the object. So object is just a way that would abstractly represent a container. And in our case, a container would be a group that could contain a group of characters. So a class would consist of the object constructor. It's just a way to map out how that object is created and what consists of in that object. Okay. And so by definition, what we would do is we would be able to use the definitions or the layout of that object to be able to access different pieces of that object, okay, or instance of that class. So, and we will write class and object. You know that this is C-oriented, which, like, we can build. It is an object-oriented language, but Python make it a little bit simpler to really get around things by the way the syntax is and the format. So what we have is we want to be able to understand that when you have a string, right, that is part of the string class, and with that you would have the object, which consists of, it would have a constructor which maps out on what it would contain. So here is the split method. So we can use the split method to really break up that string into substring. Okay, we saw how we could do that with characters, but what they did was they have a method that automatically does this in the library. So my string, I have it assigned, I love Python. And what I wanted to do is to piece that into individual word, right, in that string. So I can use split to break it up into 3 words. I love Python. So here I have a second variable, right, that's gonna actually hold the pieces when I split it up. And when you use the split method, you would add the variable or the string container, and then you would use the dot split. Since it's a method, what you're doing is you're splitting up my string, right? You're going and access my string to break it apart. So the output would be I love Python individually. So it's going to tell you that it is a list, and it broke these pieces into individual element in that list. Okay, so we can use it to split it up. Now, let's run an example program. Okay, so in number two, we have we have to create, right, a variable to contain our full name as a string. So I have full name, and then I put my full name inside the quotation marks. And then I simply have another variable that's going to contain the substring that I'm going to split from that full name. So full name split. And I wanted to indicate where the split mark is going to be using the single quotation mark there. So it knows that it's going to split at that white space. Okay, so that's important. The parameter of split, you have to tell it where it is. So if you're using like a symbol or something to separate the words, then you can point to that symbol. So for example, I can do Casey, exclamation point when, then exclamation point needs to go into the parameter as a split point, a split marker. Okay, so when I print this, what it's going to do is going to take a look at that space right there. It's going to say, oh, it's going to take Casey and separate it from the last name Win. Okay, and here you saw the example from I love Python in the notes. So when we run this, we see that, let me close this and then run it as a separate thing so you can see it better. Okay, so what that does is it takes that string and break it up into multiple elements in a list. Okay, and so it says my first name as a substring and then my last name as a substring in that list. And the same thing with I love Python. So that's your output. So for number two, we would do something like this, where we would declare a variable, and that variable would contain your full name as a string, and then we would use the split method, right? And we want to indicate where each of the substring going to split by using the quotation space quotation. So we would say that that's the space, that's the marker. And then we would print that. Okay. Any question?
Would you be able to split words that are like stuck together without spacing?
Well, you have to use something to mark where it's going to split. So if you do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? Then how are you going to be able to split that? So you have to use a character to really indicate the split.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So, for example, on the A, B, C, D, F, G, if you use the character C,
Yes.
it's going to split right there.
Right. You have to mark where it's split. And the reason why I use space here is that it's visibly, you can see that, right? But you can use symbol to separate it. So if I use like the symbol instead of the white space here, right? Like KC hashtag win, then I would pass the hashtag in here. Okay. So any character you can use. All that does is it's going to look for that and it's going to put the mark there, and that's how it's going to split. For a lot of the convenience, I love Python that it has a lot of the stuff pre-built for you, so you don't have to work from scratch. A lot of languages are, because you know developers always add library.
Question.
Yes.
Can you
So,
can you split by new line or tab?
with escape character,
Yes.
I haven't tried that. Good question. If you put escape character, let's say, like an N here, right? That's what you're indicating. Let me try it. Because when I read the documentation, yeah, so it takes it, but it puts the, yeah, it takes it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so it's still a character. But make sure that you put your character inside the quotation mark because it needs to be part of that string in order for it to mark it. That's important. Okay, all right. Any other questions? Okay, so we learned about split. We also learn in our notes here that we can also use count. So we can count up the number of, you know, character that is in a certain string. So the example I use is banana because it's easy. You can count up the N or you can count up the A, right? So I chose to count up the A because it's more. So I have string 1 and I assign it banana as a string. And then I would use the count method. And again, we want to indicate what character it's looking for here to count. So we're looking to count A. So we want to indicate the A there. Okay. And so it would tell me 3 because A occurs 3 times in that string. Now you can have a longer length string, right? Like, you know, I am a student, and then you can look for a specific character throughout that string. You don't have to have it one word like what I have. So you can say banana is yummy, and you can look for, you know, a certain character, whatever. That would work too, okay? So count is pretty cool. You can use it with lists, and it would look for the substring in that list. So the second example I have here is color list, and I have blue, yellow, pink, red, blue, white. So we can seek for blue by putting it into the parameter here. Since blue occurs twice, it's going to tell me 2. Okay. So why is this important? Well, you know, what you can do is, you know, in the case where if you have an application where you would need to look for a certain repeating substring inside, let's say comment or whatever that the customer put, then you can have it where it's looking for that substring, or even characters, right? Like let's say if we're making a game where we would have the user guess how many character that occurs over, that particular string or that phrase. So we can apply this into many different programs. However, you would simply just use count. So when I print this, I simply bring down my variable that I use to assign my string, and then I would use the dot count, and then in the parameter for the count, I want to tell what that is that it's looking for. So the character A, that's what it's going to search for. So here's the count program. And so I would have, for the first one, I count A. And then another example, I have a count I in California. And then on the third one, I have it count blue in the color list, like what you see there. So it tells me that A occurs 3 times, right? And then I occurs 2 times in California, and that's correct. And then blue occurs 2 times in list, or there are 2 blue present in that list substring.
Question?
Yes.
What is the default? Does it just look for lowercase?
No, it looks for whatever you specify. Oh, you mean like if you leave it blank, then it looks for blank. So whatever you specify here, it's gonna look for that. So if I specify C here, right, it's gonna look for the capital. It's case sensitive.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So if I resave this, so you can see. Yeah, so it looks for whatever you specify in the parameter. Now, I think this is what Michelle means, right? Like if you have to have a parameter there, right? It's going to throw an error if you don't have it. So you have to have something there, otherwise it's not, because you ask it to seek for a character, it has to be there. Okay.
Well, actually, no, my question was like, if you don't put the upper or the lower, which we haven't gotten to yet, like what
Oh yeah,
does
yeah,
it default to?
right. Okay. So here's the count example. Okay, so we did the split for our assignment. Next, so in 3, what we're gonna do is we are going to skip every 2 letters of programming. We're gonna have it repeated 4 times. And then for the first letter and every 3rd letter of the repeat string from number B. So you want it to show every 3rd letter. So just like the skip example that I show you, the last to the first character skipping every other letter. So very much like the example in the notes, okay, only that we're going to skip 2 letters. And then we wanted to take that programming and make it 4 times, so times 4. And then to display every other third. Let me see if I have one. No, I didn't make it for that assignment, but I did do the example one. So use the example. You can use the example to write, and you can write it all in one script and then run it so you can see. Okay. So from the first letter, that's index 0, right? And then you can use the length, or you can leave it blank to go to the end, and then you can have it skip, you can have it showing every third in the repeating. So :3. Okay. So that was a while back. We talked about that for number 3. So do the skip for that. And then for count, you would use count to look for I in Indianapolis. Just like what we did with California, right? Like this. So state name and then Indianapolis. And then print and then count I. Let's just switch this to I so it doesn't confuse people. So very much like that. Okay. So that's for 4 to do the count. Okay. Any question regarding count? Let's talk about replace. So when you read the textbook, it's, you know, the way he writes is very much like writing stories. Some of the stuff some of the methods I actually added because since we talk about it, we might as well learn the other methods in case you need to use it. But so he does show some example in the actual chapter itself, but I just wanted to make it where you can quickly find some of these things. But yeah, there are resources online as well, like documentation and example. Okay, so here's to replace is that it is exactly what it's named, right? So it's a way that we can replace or substitute a substring with another substring. So the example I use here is my string, I like apples. And what if we want to replace the substring apples with oranges? So we can have print my string dot replace. And here you want it to identify what you're replacing it, what substring is being replaced. Okay, so the first part to the parameter is what substring is being replaced. The second part of the parameter is what is that replaced with, right? The new string that's going to go in. So I wanted to make it, I like oranges from I like apples. So I put apples here, comma, oranges. And it's going to output I like oranges. Okay. Now we can also have it where it would replace multiple times in a substring. So this is very similar to JavaScript. If you ever program in JavaScript, you've seen some of these methods showing up also in JavaScript.
Professor Nguyen, I got a question.
Sure.
Back by the Indianapolis one, I went ahead and did it. Is there a way to? It doesn't give me the 3 that it's supposed to have because the I is capital.
Yeah.
Is there?
Because
So is there,
you're seeking. It takes one parameter. You're seeking the lowercase I, which is different than the uppercase I intentionally did that. I actually picked that state name for that reason. That I'm
Okay.
glad you saw that.
Okay, just making sure. So do I have to correct it and make it 3, or is it just?
No, it's supposed to be 2 because if you look at the ASCII table, the lowercase I has a different value than the uppercase I.
Okay.
Remember
Okay, makes
that
sense.
the interpreter, it calculates everything in the back. The computer is a calculator. So if I'm looking for an uppercase letter, then I have to tell it that it's an uppercase letter.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
The count,
Yes.
I don't know what it's called. The count function, it only accepts one parameter, right?
Yeah,
There's
for
no
the
way for it to make it look for more than one.
so let's
one
try
letter.
that. Let's try that. So I want you to see it. Where is my count? Here's my count. So let's say that I wanted to use 2 parameter, like what you had mentioned. Let's try it, right? The way that we know is we would try it. So it's, yeah, it's gonna throw an error. It's gonna say, nope, I don't like that, right? So the way that you want it to have it multiple parameters to find substring, which is like what we do it with the list. Because from a variable, you are only gonna be able to get one seek from the variable. So if you wanted to make it where it is to find multiple, then you have to treat these as a substring in a list. So what we can do with that is if you want to really manipulate that, we would have to say state name is a list, right? C, A, L, and put each letter into the quotation mark, then you treat each individual one as substring, even though in the back it should be doing that, but it's not. Okay, so you can make it like this. Yeah. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
you're welcome. So for the parameter, yeah, we would want to only pass one. Okay. Okay. Okay, so as we touch on replace, so we can do multiple occurrences for the replace. So here I have a string. There are 2 apples, 2 oranges, and 2 pears. And I wanted to take the word 2 and I wanted to change that to 4. And I tell it to do it 3 times. So in the parameter, you would say, what is the characters or the substring that you want to replace, and then the substring that you're replacing it with, and then how many times. So the output would be there are 4 apples, 4 oranges, and 4 pears. So we can have it automated, but we have to specify how many times. Now, what if I only put 2, then it's gonna do there are 4 apples, 4 oranges, and 2 pears. So you can, they put that for the limit is to allow the developer, the programmer, to really control that 3rd one. So you don't have to replace all of them, right? So what you can do is you can specify how many times you want to replace it. So that's pretty cool. It gives you the flexibility. So here, let me get my program open. I'm pretty sure I did one. Okay. So we did the example with the banana. You saw how that's being replaced. Oh no, that's the count. I'm on the wrong one. Yes, here's the replace. Okay, so here's the apples one. So we replace the apples with the oranges. And then for the assignments, what we have to do is we have to replace the word college with CIS, right? So it's gonna find college and then it's gonna plug CIS in. And then here's the reoccurrence with the replacement. So when I run the F5, so I have come on. So I have oranges, and then I am a CIS student, so it took out the college part, and then 4 apple, 4 oranges, and 4 pears. So we did it 3 times with the replacement there. Okay. So for the assign, yes.
I have a
Michael?
question. If you
Sure.
change 3 to 2, so which 2 replace?
Yeah, so if I change that to 2,
Mm.
right? And I run the program. Yeah, only the first two is gonna get replaced.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just automated going from it defaults to the first one, and then it goes to the next one, and then it stops. So this
Okay.
allows you to put the limit. Questions? Okay, so for the next question, yes.
I got a question. So
Sure,
you know
sure.
how other programs or other what are they called
Language,
no, not other languages, but other the thing you write like the idle, but
method,
no, like the idle program. What's it called
the
again?
shell,
Yeah, like the shell, but not. But I'm talking about the specific name of them. Uh,
like IDE.
yeah, you know how some IDEs tells you exactly when you type in the like if you put replace function, it tells you exactly what parameters you can use. Does shell does that?
Does idle does that? Yeah. It for most of them, yeah.
Okay,
So
okay.
as you type it, it would tell you, or it's gonna try to hint like what you should be putting there. For some of them, I mean, it's not gonna be as great as some of the other, IDE, but
Uh-huh.
because it uses the default, all the stuff that's in Python library for that version.
Okay, okay, okay. I should pay more to that then.
Sometimes it pops up real quick, and if you keep on typing, it disappears. Unlike the other IDE where it gives you a list and you can click it, and
Yeah.
right, it doesn't
Okay.
do that. Because the other stuff is just more graphical user interface, right? That's all they add, and then they just they create the options, which is part of the programming piece in that software. So that's all it is.
Okay.
Any question? Okay, so for the next one, this is what you do. You replace the college with CIS. I just did that so that way you can just do one, so you know. I always write my own assignments in lab. I don't really use book stuff because it costs student way too much money. So it's important that you know how to write program anyway. So yeah. So for number 5, that's what you need to do is replace college with CIS. And then we'll move on to the next part if you don't have any questions. Okay. So let's talk about strip. So strip allows you to do different things like take away white space, right? Like the example you see there, I have my color is space, red space. Could be many space. What if we want to get rid of the space? And a lot of this is for us to clean things up as the user input. Okay. So the methods allow us to really clean up the space. What if they type in the extra space and we need to clean it up? So I can print my favorite color is, and then strip it where it would be red. Then I can also strip to really remove characters, right? So what if I fat finger and type in a bunch of stuff by accident and I have a bunch of characters in front of my name? What I can do is I can specify those characters, but make sure whatever that you're trying to strip, if you're doing white space, you can leave that empty, but the characters, you have to put it in the quotation mark. Otherwise, it won't know what to do. Because if I simply put in the characters without the quotation mark, it's not gonna pass. So we want to make sure that we include the characters. So here we want to get rid of, all the extra characters there. Okay. So let me show you that program. So here's the color red program, right? And then here's the name program. So as you notice, right, with the red for my parameter, I don't really need anything there. It automatically defaults to the white space there. So you don't have to put the white space in the quotation mark for the parameter for strip. But the other ones, since we're taking off all the other characters, what I want is I want to specify that, okay? And also notice that it does add the white space automatically with that. So what we can do is we can manipulate this, back it up a little bit, and then it's still gonna give me that extra space automatically. Okay.
On the real life situation or real program that you're gonna use, why do we need this for the second one? I mean, I understand for the first one, but for the my color, but wouldn't it be, why would someone name something like that?
Oh no, sometimes people accidentally type in letters and characters. I fat finger my text all the time. I don't know about you.
What yeah, wouldn't it be just easier just to delete it or back in, or
But you don't want to delete customer data though, right? Like let's
okay.
say that I type a review about your product and there's one line or one part of the string that I just accidentally like press a bunch of keys. And you know, so what you can do is you can have it clean it up.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So it's
Yeah.
for okay, I get it now.
Garbage in, garbage in. You need to have garbage in, garbage out, right? You need to get the garbage out before it gets to the database part. So,
Yeah, makes total sense.
mhm. Okay, so we want to clean up the data. You can use strip to do that because you know that takes up storage and it takes up like a lot of different, it creates other problem. And then on the security side, extra stuff is security risks. So we want to make sure that we make it neat and clean. So strip is good. Okay, any other questions?
I had a question.
Yes.
Why does it delete the E after the period, but not the E in the name Casey?
Oh, because, okay, good question. It didn't delete this, right? Because see how I specify it. So I have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. If it treats this, what it does is you have to know that before it actually strip, it breaks it up into substrings. It treats those as substring and then it strips. So there's two mechanisms in that. So what happens is it breaks these into substrings, not individual character, but pieces into substring like a list, and then it deletes it. So it keeps my name in place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but but I also purposely put this there too to also indicate it. But yeah, in the back that's what's happening if you read the documentation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Questions? Okay, so you saw how that is stripped, and then next one, lower and upper. So we can use lower to change uppercase letters to lowercase, right? Like how you would see this in C++ is to lower to upper. You've seen that before if you use C++. So we simply just use lower, and you don't need anything in the parameter. So if I put I am a student, and then if I want to convert everything to lowercase, then I would have I am a student in all lowercase there. So you would see the output there. And then you can use is lower. So all that is it's just to check and verify if it's lowercase. So if we use is lower, then it will just return true or false, right? So in the case where the example here, I put I am student and all is all capitalized, it sees that student is capitalized or uppercase letter, so it gives me false. Okay. So what we can do is we can use it to really verify to see if it's all upper or lowercase. Now, why is this important, right? We deal with password all the time about how people using username, you know, and password. And you notice that sometime when you inputting your password and you have your cap locks on, it tells you your cap locks on, right? Well, the programmer's job is to really notify the user, you know, your password doesn't match, you know, possibly check to see because they might have typed it all in cap. So, or in the case where if we're recording data and we don't want to type everything in cap locks because, you know, that could just mean that they're yelling as in a, you know, maybe a message or whatnot. So there's a lot of functionality in this, but we can use it to check. Now, upper method is just to change the lowercase to the uppercase letters. Like what you see here, it's all capitalized. And then isupper is to verify that the string contains uppercase letters. Okay. So in this case, I have Python, and that verified that it is true because it's all uppercase. So it shows true. Okay. So you can use upper lower methods or is upper is lower method. So is upper checks and it only output true or false. Same thing with is lower. Now for the lower method or upper method, that converts the cases for the letters. Okay. So now, yes, question?
I was going to say, so like you could use this with the in the count program that we were writing earlier to change Indianapolis to all lowercase.
Yeah,
and then
perfect. Very clever. I think that, you know, some of you thought of this already, right? And in the book, he did show that too, where he had it like a long string, and you can use, yeah, you can use multiple methods to really convert it and then count it. Then you would have the third I, right? Either way. So if you're looking for, you know, a specific, then you have to convert it. So yeah, there's an extra step in that. Very good point. Good idea. Okay. So if you're just looking for I in general, then we can convert it. Okay. So I want you to write a program that uses lower and upper to display your full name in lowercase and uppercase letter. That's all you have to do. Okay. And if you want, you can add a statement to check to see if it's upper or lower. So I think I have one. I do. Open. So changing, you saw the student one, right? Changing I am a student to lower, and then verify if it's lowercase, and then changing the upper and verify it. So you can do that with your name, okay? Just your full name, first and last name, and then make it all lowercase and make it all uppercase, just print. Okay, very easy.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
Is there anything that you can put in the parentheses? Like, are there any parameters for lower and upper, or are they just empty?
Well, let's say that if you're asking like this, like make the S lowercase, you mean?
Yeah, like if there's anything Yeah, like if you put anything
Yeah,
in the parentheses or if they would stay empty.
it's automated where it's only gonna look for everything and convert it. So if you want to specify like a certain character, it doesn't let you do that with that function or that method. Yeah, unfortunately. Then we probably have to break it up into pieces again. So we have to implement another method like what we did, right? And then convert it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
I'm
you.
sure that somebody can probably write a library for that or a function and with the and add it to the library for that. Sure. Everything is achievable if you can combine method. Yeah, you can probably create something else and to make it do both. Yeah, there's so many things that you can learn with the built-in, right? You can go on forever looking for built-in, but you know, it's just some of the basic with the strings what we cover. Okay, so use the example program to do the next question, which is question 6. Okay, your full name to lowercase and then uppercase. Okay. So here we have join for the next part. So let's talk about join. So join shows you. So now it works with containers that it can iterate, meaning that lists, you can use tuple, you can use dictionary, and we'll talk about those later on. But here, since we've been working with lists a little bit here and there, I want to show you the list. So here's an example of join. You have users, you got Cecilia, Noah, Julia, Daniel. And then what I want to do is I want to combine all of these substring from the list into one, but hyphenate each of the name. So it's going to output Cecilia dash or hyphenate Noah, Julia, and Daniel separated by the dash. So what we can do is we can take all the little substrings and then make it all into one as one group, right? Group it all into one and then have it hyphenated. So what you simply do is you would, here I use a variable and I would say what that is, right? And I'm using the hyphen. So if you're using the hashtag, you gotta tell what that character is, okay? And then you would pass it with the method here, okay? The reason why I do this is because if you're trying to pass it as another substring with it, it's not gonna like it because the only way that you can use the method with that is with an identifier, right? And here we use an identifier to say what that symbol is or that character is. So I had add that here. Okay. So let me show you the join. Okay, so we saw this example, Cecilia, Noah, Julia, Daniel, right? We use the dash or the hyphen to connect the names together. Then I have A, B, C, D, E, right? And then we want to join. So in this case, if you leave it with the white space, what that does, it joins it with the white space, okay? And then we will also have a list, Python programming, learning, and schools. And what we can do is we can use a parameter with join. And also another string. So what we would do is we would add that string into each of the substring on that list. So it should say, Python is fun, programming is fun, learning is fun, and school is fun. Now, if you don't put this extra blank string at the end, what will happen is it's going to stop at school and it's not going to do school is fun. So I play with it a little bit. And so What you want is, if you want it to, for it to repeat and add the is fun to it, right? Then you have to add this little extra white space there. So my output, let me bring it up again so you can see. So we connected the names, right? And it's put it all in one string and it used a hyphen. Then you use join again to have A, B, C, D, E, and we use white space there. So we would put that there, okay? And then we would have Python programming, learning, and school, and we wanted to add is fun, so you can add a substring to it to join it, each of the element in that list. So you can join with symbols or characters or white space, or you can join it with other strings. Okay? Any question?
Question.
Yes.
Why is this format opposite to the other ones? Because this one starts with a parameter and then the
Yeah, because you have to pass the container into the method, and it's going to access the property of that container from here. Yeah, because we have multiple elements in that. Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, because the other one, what you have is you would have, you know, the list name here, and then you would have to specify here. But because we're actually looking at the properties, we're adding property into that container instead of accessing the property of that container. You see what I mean? You adding elements into that container instead of looking or accessing the element of that container.
is this specific to strings? Does that have anything to do with it?
No, it's specific to this type of method to join, because technically if you're looking at these substrings, right, they don't have the hyphen yet. The list doesn't have the hyphen yet. You're adding that hyphen into that list.
Okay, so anything that you're adding is going to be like in this format.
Reverse, yes.
Okay.
Because it's not an existing property of that list. Where in the other cases, we're actually accessing a property of that container.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about the object and how, yeah, string is an object, but if you're looking at other types of object or object that you create, you would go about the same way. Like you have to say, oh, is this, is it with the original object? And if it's not, then you have to write it the other way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. Okay, so now, so do you have any question regarding join? So here's the example for that. And notice that I pointed that out, because if you don't have that there, it's not gonna add is fun to school. It's just gonna stop at school. Okay, so it comes down to this. You have to make sure that there's container. It comes down to the size of it. So on how string is sized technically for memory. So, okay. All right. So let's see, how far am I in time here? We talked about join. You just have to create a list of your family member names and then join them with the hashtag. So instead of like the hyphen, like what we did with the users list, just use the hashtag. Okay. That's good. Okay, let's talk about starts with. I only have like 2 more to go, so we have like about 19 minutes. So starts with. Okay, so starts with check if the string begins with the specified value and it's going to return true or false. So it's a way that we can verify if it starts with a certain character or, you know, whatever value we would put there. So first we have to tell the first part of the parameter is the value. It's required. So you have to put down what that is that you're looking for. So for it to check. And then you can also specify the range of where it's going to check. So the start and the end. So this would be the integer for the position of the search. And so in the first one here, we're only going to do the value. So I'm searching for the capital P in Peter Pan. And so I declared my variable and I assign a string Peter Pan to it. And then I simply print and I'm looking for if it starts with the P and it tells me true. Okay, yes. Now, if it's lowercase p, then it's going to give me false because it's going to look for the capital P, case sensitive, right? Now, if you want to use the 3 parts in the parameter, so with this, what we want to do is we want to look for a substring. Sorry, that's a typo. Probably sleepy there. That what begins with us at a certain position. So what we can do is, here is our string, Tinkerbell and Peter Pan. And what we want is, we want to point out where in that string that we're going to look for BEL. You can do BELL, whatever, right? So what I want is, I want to count up the character or the index from the start until where I'm going to look. So what you have to do is tell it where it's going to start. So I'm going to start at 7, right? And then I'm going to end it at 24. Okay. So kind of like before, where we're looking at, you know, we put the index in for the range. It's very much like that. We have to put in the range on where it's going to look. Otherwise, it's going to give you false. If it's off a little bit, right? It's gonna, if it can't find the 3 characters, it's going to give you false. Okay. So let me show you how that is. So here's my program. You saw the Peter Pan one, and this one is where we're gonna use 3 parts parameter. So now it tells me that yes, capital P is in Peter Pan as it is assigned. Now BEL is in the string that's assigned. Okay, so now let me see if I tweak this to 8, right, at position 8 to 24 at that index, right? See how it gives me false because it doesn't have the complete BEL. It would just be EL, and EL doesn't equal BEL. So therefore it gives me false. So when you tell it to seek, it's going to look for those characters exactly, right? So if your position is off with the index here, with the range for where it to seek, then it's going to give you false. Okay? So we can have it to do start with. Now, you know, if you're looking for keywords that would start, so you can alphabetize all the keywords, sure, you can do that. You can do start with, and then we can start with A, then it's gonna, you know, find how many words that would start with an A, okay, and it's gonna tell you does it, or keywords start with an A, it's true. So we can use it for different functionality depending on the application that you would create or the script that you would use it for. Or let's say that in the network environment, you have a list of network devices, right? And you want to check to make sure that if there is specific ones. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. The
Yes.
24 is and position 24.
Yes. The end
But
position.
24 including that NPT, the gap position.
I'm sorry, say it again.
This 24 like between two words they have
Yeah,
like
you have to count the space as
space.
yes, you count the space.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Now if I put so let's go back to what we were using 7, and what if I put 20, right? Instead of 24. Let's see what it does. Okay. It's still going to be true. You know why? Because BEL is in that range. You don't have to go until the end. You can just be in that range. So BEL is right here. So it is between 7 and 20.
Okay.
Okay. You can even change this down to lower. Let's say if we make it like 15 to see if it's there, right? It's still going to be true. Yeah. So
if you put the 7 as like a 4.
Yeah, no, the 7 would make it right here.
Yeah, I know. If you put the 4 to 15, they still bill in that range.
Okay. No.
No, you have to start with
because you have other character that's involved in that, so it's not. Yeah, you have to have the right start.
Okay.
Yeah, the tricky part. The later part, it can forget the other characters, but so yeah, we had it at 7. So here, yes.
Can you, like in Linux, can you do wildcards? And is that something we learned this semester?
Yes. We'll talk about using symbols for some of that. But yes, Python is used in Linux, and so yes, you can implement something like that. Okay. Any other question? So I want to cover the last one, and then we'll call it a day. Okay. So the last part is it goes over is Alnum, is alpha, and is digit. Very similar to JavaScript. This is a way that we can check to see, especially when we deal with forms or input, user input. So for example, in this case, is Alnum, it's going to check for characters and numbers. So alphanumeric. So I have John Doe and a bunch of numbers. It's going to give me true. Okay, now if I just have John Doe without the numbers, then it's going to give me false because it will just be only alphabet. So when you use is Alnum, it has to be both as assigned. Now, if you want to only check for alphabets, then you can use is alpha. So in this case, we have a mix of number and letters. Then is alpha is going to give us false. Okay. So this is a good way that we can control, we can look for error in input, right? Like if you ask them to input, a phone number, and so you can use a method to really check and make sure that it's only numbers. If it's not, then prompt them, error, right? Re-input your phone number. So we can have it the right format as well. So a way that we can keep it only numbers, we can use is digit. And so for example, like my contact phone number is 909 blah 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 there, only numbers that's assigned. Then I simply check to see if it's a digit. So you can say is digit, and that will be true. Okay, there's another method called is decimal, and it would check for decimal number similarly, right? So it will look to see if that number is a decimal number, and in scripting, like let's say you use it for like IP addresses and you know, other things in network and security environment, is decimal would check for the IP that would be decimal number, but then, you know, IP version 6 is a hexadecimal, so that's gonna be is Alnum, right? Because it's letter and number. So there's specific, but when you look at the output for is decimal and is digit, it's the same. It would say true for our case for the last example here. Okay. All right. So I want to show you the program. Okay, so I included all three in one so this is our example. When we run this, you already know the result. True for the first case because it's letters and number. False for the second case because it's not just alphabet, it has numbers within, so false there. And then true for the last one. Okay, so we can check. Now, what I want you to do for the last one is you're going to have username, user age, and user address. And I let you assign the arbitrary value to those. So name should only be alphabet, right? So when you check is alpha for username, if you can make it input, you know, I didn't require that for this one. Or you can just make it where you assign the value, that's okay. So if you make it an input, you can check in different scenario. And then is digit for the age. So you can ask them to input their age. And then you can check to make sure that it's only numbers, right? And then is Alnum, that will be user address. So to see if it's alphanumeric values. Okay, so you can follow the example. So I can have it assigned, or I can have it as, you know, input into a variable. It's up to you. So once you have that program completed, take a screen capture, save it. You can put it all the screen capture on one document. That way you don't have to upload many times. And then submit it on Canvas as an attachment. Okay. I will try to get your grade stuff done from last week. This class is small anyway, so I can probably get that. So I'll try to get all of that tomorrow for you. So the next time we meet, you have updated grade. It's been a little crazy because I have a lot of different projects going on and I'm behind. So sorry. It's outside of just teaching, but yeah. Oh, I want to point out, since we have a few minutes, I posted an internship thing that came up today, and I try to put it on announcements so you can see. So the interesting thing is Nikki Cook, she is our CTE career placement coordinator. So if you ever need anyone to look at your resume or, you know, help you kind of coach you for an interview or something, you can make an appointment to talk to her. So she works with like different companies, and then we have an apprenticeship director who does apprenticeship. So we, you know, but she's more of like job and internship. So I had asked her about if Riverside Sheriff Department is hiring forensic, you know, interns, because in the past they have hired one of my interns after the internship, and he's there now. Anyway, so she had asked, and he said, oh, you know, have them submit the application. It's case to case. You know, they have one for all different departments. So I put it on here, and it's it starts at 11. It can go to 18 an hour. It all depends on what they're going to have you do. And it's a temporary position because all internship positions are temporary, but it could go as long as a couple of years. It all depends. But you can look at the general information. I copy and paste this from their link. So if you want the internship information and the application, click this link. And if you have questions, you can send them an email. They do take a while to get back to you, though. I just want to let you know. I learned that from student experience. But anyway, the minimum qualifications, you just have to work toward your bachelor or your master program in an accredited colleges, and it could be a vast amount of things. So I would jazz up the resume and then submit it. If you're looking for specific things, also include a cover letter, really address that in the cover letter. You know, so if you're looking for like Python programming job or data analysis job or whatever that you think that you would excel in that would tie with your education, highlight that in your cover letter and, you know, include your resume. And but for your resume, just make it short, simple, to the point list. So like the programming languages, list the programming languages, and you can make like a short sentence too, like what kind of level you are, like intermediate or if you're advanced, right? And if you have portfolio and things online for your programs, include that as a link on, you know, either your cover letter or on your resume. So that way we know, because a lot of times people skim through your resume and it looks for, you know, keywords like products, software tools, stuff like that. So try to make it, you know, clean, nice looking. And if you want to be more specific in the like a sentence, try to quantify and qualify in that sentence, meaning that, so for example, if you worked as a manager for 5 years at a restaurant, that's good. You have good management skills, people skills. So you need to qualify and quantify it by saying that, you know, managerial, you know, or you know, hospitality management for 5 years. So you have qualification, which is that skill, and then the quantification is the amount of time. So it's always good to do that. And I interviewed a lot of people, and I've hired a lot of people before for various things. So that would be something that I would recommend. Okay. But check out the internship, apply for it. And then what I'll do is I will follow up with them saying, oh, my students are applying, can you check? And so that way we can push it into a certain direction. But anyway, hopefully we'll be able to get Certiport up and running in October, so you can start looking to certify for Microsoft with Python. Yay! And then other certifications too. I'm getting a training for Perkins distribution next week, so, or the end of this week. So I'll let you know further if we have, you know, it takes a little bit for them to get the money to the software vendor, but we will get the license, and then you'll be the first to know. Yeah, so many things. And then any other questions? Okay, if you want to make sure I get you for attendance, type in your name. If not, I just pull the attendance list, and I do normally look at your participation on Canvas as well. So, but thank you for attending, and then submit your assignment. We'll work on lab next session on Wednesday, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Goodbye.
Bye. Have a good one. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. You guys okay? Any questions before I get off Zoom? Ray, Ricky? No? Okay. Okay, you guys. See you Wednesday. Have a good one.